Hey everyone, it's Carol again from princegeorgeweddingofficiant.ca. This is my video on creating your own DIY wedding ceremony. So let's get started. So who would like to create their own DIY wedding ceremony? Well, there's lots of people out there that they either want to have a small ceremony or really want to do things their way. And they just want to have absolute complete say in what their wedding ceremony looks like. And fair enough, there's lots of great ways to do that. Where would you hold a DIY wedding ceremony? Well, to me, the first place I would think of holding a DIY wedding ceremony would be maybe in your own backyard, or like me here, I'm out on my deck, maybe out on your deck, or maybe you have some elderly parents that can't travel, so you actually opt to do it in a care home, or there's all sorts of reasons why people might want to DIY their own wedding ceremony. So I'm just here to help you try and figure out what is absolutely essential and what isn't, and what can be played with. The number one consideration when you're doing a DIY wedding ceremony is how many people have to be involved. Well, there's a really simple answer: 5. You have to have 2 people getting married, and you have to have 2 witnesses, 1 for each person getting married. And then you have to have the officiant, or a minister, or a pastor, someone that is legally licensed to perform the wedding ceremony if you want it to be legal. If you don't want it to be legal, it doesn't matter. Maybe you're just doing it as a show of love to some loved ones, then anybody can be the minister. But if it needs to be legal, you need to have a legal minister. The next consideration in your DIY ceremony is music. Generally, we look for 3 to 5 songs. Song number 1 would be played as your guests arrive. That song could also be used for the processional, which is when the bride and the groom come down the aisle. Song number 2 would be for when you are actually signing the license. It's a pause in the ceremony, and to entertain your guests a little bit, it's nice to have a little bit of background music. Song number 3 would be for the recessional. So the ceremony is over, the groom has kissed the bride, and now you're announced as husband and wife, and you leave the front of the service area to go greet your friends. That's called the recessional. So usually another song for the recessional. Optionally, you can have a separate song for the groom and his groomsmen to enter, and you can have a separate song for the bride and her bridesmaids to enter. So anywhere from 3 to 5 songs. I highly recommend that you just put them on a playlist, have a friend sitting in the audience attached to a Bluetooth speaker that has attended the reception, which we'll talk about, and knows what the keys are, what the cues are in order to start the music. Number 4, who's escorting the bride? There really are no rules around this, but you should put some thought into it. The bride can come down the aisle by herself. She can have a father or a brother or an uncle escort her down the aisle. She can have parents, best friends. There's really no rules. Whatever works for the bride and her groom, and the ceremony is absolutely fine. There's no limits, no requirements, or anything on that aspect of the ceremony. And the last thing to consider is the license. So I'm a wedding officiant in Prince George in the province of British Columbia in Canada. Now you can get your licenses at Service BC. Now they're good for 3 months. So as long as the service is performed within the 3 months, you're good. When you get your license, read it over. There's some extra pieces of information that do need to be filled in prior to the ceremony, and do not sign it. You sign it at the ceremony. Once the ceremony is completed, the groom, the bride, the two witnesses, and the minister all take a few moments out of the ceremony to sit down and legalize the ceremony. Now, that is considered a legal document. It is a binding contract. Once it's signed, you have 3 days to get it in the mail to the Department of Vital Statistics. When I perform a wedding ceremony, I actually take charge of that. Once the document is signed and the ceremony is complete, I actually bring it back to my office. I put it in the mail on behalf of the bride and groom. They're going to a party or something afterwards. The last thing they need to be worried about is where's the contract. And this brings us to the point of a few other things that we should probably talk about. Number 1 is the rings. There's no rule on rings. You don't have to have a ring. Rings are only a symbol of your love and commitment to each other. If you choose to have rings, they go on the ring finger on the left hand, and whoever your minister is will guide you through that process. The next thing you should consider is vows. There's only one rule to vows. Doesn't matter how long or how short they are. Doesn't matter whether they're a repeat after me, whether you've written them yourself, or whether they're standard vows. The only requirement of a vows is that it shows up as a promise and a commitment to each other. Again, you're forming into a legal binding contract. With the vows, you are setting the intention that you are going ahead with that obligation. 2 more things that you should think about is alcohol and your rehearsal. So let's cover alcohol first. So I've said it several times already. You are forming a contract, a legal obligation, and you cannot be drunk in order to do that. We all know that brides and grooms, and that's my dog, we all know that brides and grooms have maybe a little shot here or a glass of champagne there as they're preparing for their big day. But you cannot be intoxicated. If you're intoxicated, first of all, the minister should not go through with the ceremony. And if they do decide to go through this with the ceremony, and it can be proved that you're intoxicated, your contract would be considered null and void, and you'd have to do it all over. And the last thing in your own DIY ceremony, and in my opinion, this is probably the most important thing, have a rehearsal. Give people the opportunity to know where they stand, where their spacing is supposed to be, and what the process is of the actual ceremony itself, and what your expectations are. So I suggest that you talk through it once, you work out any plans, and then you walk through it twice. After that point in time, if you want to continue on and have a barbecue or go for a ride on the boat or whatever you're going to do, then that's a great time, great evening to be spent with friends. So I've included a printable below. By all means, you don't have to sign up for it or anything like that. Just click on it and you should be able to download it and print it for yourself. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you know anybody that's doing their own DIY ceremony, please give this a share. It helps them. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye-bye.